Hello and welcome to Gus Codes. I am Gus, and in this session of xganso I'll implement the tactical combat mechanic of xganso using ECS. This mechanic splits combat into two phases, planning and execution. Let's take a look at the design. First, I implement the stats component, which holds the basic stats of each character: attack, defense and hit points. These stats will be used as the basis for calculating combat outcomes. Next, I move on to the planning phase. A combat intent is represented by attack target component. Additionally, there's an attack target dirty flag which signals when a change has occurred, indicating that any dependent systems need to recalculate. Right now, that means the combat simulate, which takes the attackers and defenders stats and outputs the expected result of the combat. These results are shown to the player through the combat previewer, helping them plan their turn more strategically. The execution phase begins with an attack command, which triggers the attack trigger system. This system creates an attack instance containing all the attack data and attaches it to the defender. Then the attack resolution system calculates the final damage, applying any reductions, and produces an incoming damage. This damage is applied by the damage application system, which also adds the mark for death tag if the character's hit point reaches 0. Finally, the death system checks for any character marked for death and handles it accordingly. Enough design, let's start coding. We're gonna start setting up our components. Okay, I think I covered most of the components that I had in mind. If we're missing something or we have to adjust, we can do it later. Let's start with our systems now. We're gonna start with the planning part of the combat. So it's gonna be the combat preview calculator and the combat preview displayer. Okay, I'm gonna adjust something on the main battle so we can simulate our combat and see how it is going. So I'm gonna add some more events here. Okay, so we're gonna just use one party entity and not do random because we want to be a little bit more controlled what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna set these two different, so Q and W, to attack the entity 1 or 2. And we're gonna set the attack target 30 so it will recalculate whatever we need. We're doing a very simple damage, it's just attack minus defense. In the future we might have a separate module that will calculate that for us, but for the time being we are not very focused on this part. Okay, we actually need to do the combat previewer system so we can see if something is being generated. And of course we have to remove here the attack target 30, so we calculate it once. Of course I have to put all the systems and components. Okay, looks good. We might also add a combat preview dirty tag, and then only if it's dirty then we print. But the thing is that right now we are printing the console, and in the future we're gonna tip it in the screen, so have to see how it works, but it's a good idea. good, this is the planning part. Now let's move on to our execution part. So this is something that I'm struggling with a little bit because I wanted to get all the elements together. So attack command, attack target, stats all at once. But it might be the case that they all have that and the attack command is missing, or the attack command is there but it's wrongly placed and the other stuff isn't there. So I feel that I have to just see which one have the command and then get all the components, because I have to remove the attack command in the end. And if there's something wrong with the chain of components, then it might be the case that this attack command is gonna be there forever, or then when something is correct, it will just trigger this thing wrongly. It's not ideal. I would like to get all the package together, but it is what it is. I think I'm gonna add this combat preview dirty because it's gonna be easier for us to debug at the moment. Okay, let's see how this all works out. It's very important to notice that all these components throughout the pipeline, they are temporary, so they always should be removed. So the attack instance is only one instance. It's removed. Of course, if it's multiple instances, then we need a different component or a different system to handle that. The damage as well, the incoming damage, it happens once. It can be recurring, but then it's a different idea. And the mark for death as well. At the moment, we are just printing what's happening because we're not showing anything on the screen, only on the console. So in the future we have to arrange that or fix that, but at the moment it's okay. Okay, it's only displaying once, that's nice. So let's attack the mage. 0 attack 2 with power 10, 2 blocked attack with power, attack instance attack 10 with defense 2, resulting in 8 damage. 2 took 8 damage, it is now with 0 HP. Wait, that's actually not accurate, or is it? Oh, it actually has 8 HP. Okay, so that was unfortunate. Let's attack the other one. 0 attack 1, blocked. It's now at 17 HP. Well, it's gonna be a long... Well, at the moment we can attack, of course, but in the future we have to select the valid targets and stuff. It is now 1, okay, does not have HP. I like this idea of printing, but it's not something that I'm focusing too much at the moment. I think that's it for the time being, because we wanted to make everything the previewer. So we have now the stats. In these stats we have to fix this max HP. Maybe it can be derived from HP, but still have to see. The combat, so we have the attack target, and then we started using this dirty flag for recalculation. We have the attack command that we already used for the movement. We have the combat preview and the preview dirty as well, the same idea. idea. It's a longer living instance and we want to remove. This is something that's interesting that we might have forgot. We have to remove the combat preview. We have the attack instance that's short-term, incoming damage and mark for death. So these are shortcoming and these are processed in only one frame. So, and the other ones, they are longer lived. We have to actually, when we trigger the system, we have to remove the combat preview. I'm not sure if this one should be doing this or this one. Anyways, I think it's okay. So we did a lot of preparation for this one and the implementation was quite simple. We can even go through our changes now. So in the main battle, of course, we hooked up in this new, so we gave stats for every entity and we added all our systems. And then we did these 3 commands here to trigger stuff. So not very complicated, but it's okay for exemplifying what we have to do. For the combat, as I said, we have the target and the dirty target, the command, the preview and the dirty preview, and then this temporary that are used for the pipeline. Of course, in the future, we will do a more complex system with layers of influence. So for instance, we'll have the base attack and then we have equipment, armor, weapons, and then we have buffs, debuffs, extra. And then the idea is that we can keep track on all of them. So 1, we can show them on the combat preview, and 2, that we can log everything and the user can know exactly what influence on what. So for instance, you had a 50% increase attack, so your base attack was this, and then with this 50% it came to this. And of course, when I say only 50%, it's simple, but when you have multiple effects compounding on this, on everything, and then sometimes you have a flat level and sometimes you have a percentage level, then it depends also on the order, and so it's gonna be more transparent to the player what is the actual result, and that's gonna be displayed on the previewer as well, and then of course on the logs. Stats, currently we have only attack, defense and HP. In the future as well, when we have more stats, we can split these into different components. So for instance, one idea is that you have the physical stats would be much like this one, except HP would be in a different stat, it would be its own, but we could have physical stats for attack, defense, and we could have, for instance, magical stats. So it would be magic attack, magic defense, and then we can split them accordingly, because although all the classes will have the same components, sometimes for processing you don't need the entire stat component, so it's better to group them when needed, but of course not do too complicated because too granular, so it's a fine balance there. And our combat, so we have the preview part, so we have the simulator. In the future we will extract this calculation to a separate service, kind of like the pathfinding that we have. So with that we can reuse, because right now it's a little bit redundant. We have both here calculating and of course here when we're resolving the attack. So that's something that we might change in the future. We added this combat preview 30 to prevent further processing of this, and I think it was a very nice addition. I have been studying this dirty this last week and I am very happy with this, and it can bring a lot of benefits for the overall system. The combat preview system, currently I'm only displaying on the console, but in the future it should be on the screen somewhere. Okay, next one, attack trigger system. This will create the instance of attack. So right now it's only the attack, right? But imagine in a case that we have critical chance and critical damage. When we do the preview would say, okay, critical chance 10%. And then when we have the trigger system here, we would roll the dice for the critical, and then we would say, okay, is this a critical hit or not? So the attack is one instance of all the possibility. Right now it's very simple and all the attacks are the same, but yeah, when we have more complex stuff or maybe some conditional buffs and stuff, so yeah, everything would be solved here and would be already the final power. The attack resolution system, that's the same idea. So right now we only subtract the defense, and then in the future we might have like damage reduction and then flat damage block, for instance, percentage based damage reduction. So That's also going to be a pipeline on its own. So both the attack trigger and attack resolution system are actually going to be a pipeline where everything is going to be applied in a certain order and coming up with a final attack power and a final damage taken. And then the damage application system, why is it separated? Because in ECS we have to make one thing and one thing very good. So we could put in the attack resolution system already taking the damage, but with this split we allow to have more flexibility in our system. And also, for instance, if we want to trigger animation, sounds, anything, then it's better. And also the damage application system, it can be used outside combat. So for instance, imagine the character is poisoned and it takes damage every day or something. So in this case we can also do unrelated damage to combat. So it's always nice to have independent modules that operate only on a certain condition and are not attached to others. So to have, like, what's the name of that? No dependencies to unrelated systems. And our dev system, currently we're only saying that it died, but in the future also we can do animations and stuff and so forth. We calculate here because I thought about having another system just to check this, but it's really not relevant. If we can guarantee that the HP is only reduced here, then we can do this check here as well. I think those are all the changes. So we commit and we push and we are done. And I would just like to say that I spent a long time in this week learning how the combat would be done, and I had to do some adjusts here and there, and it felt that it was very complicated, but then when we implemented it felt very simple. And that's very interesting because the more I am developing with these ECS systems, the more I'm understanding the flow that we have to take, the life of the components, and what kind of components I need to pass this information, and what kind of systems I need, and to split them into very small systems. So that's, I think it's part of an upgrade of our side. And also in this step we only did the overall framework, so there are so many more complicated stuff that we can add. So for instance, the animation, the sound, and displaying everything on the screen, and the pipeline of attack and defense with all the intrinsic mechanisms. I'm very happy with the result overall, and yeah, that's it for the implementation part. To summarize, today we implemented the tactical combat mechanic of xganso using ECS. Thanks to a thoughtful design, adding new mechanics has become straightforward. While the core combat concepts are still to be defined, the framework we've built is flexible and ready for future extensions. In the next session, we'll wrap the first batch of mechanics with level progression. That will bring us to a point where we can start tying everything together for a demo: game mechanics, player input, and the core systems behind the gameplay. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next session.